Look, we've all seen those wild, gut-feeling tournament predictions circulating out there. But today, we're grounding all of that in hardcore macro-tactical football analysis. Grab your notebooks because we're going to look at the 2026 bracket strictly through the eyes of a professional scout. We're talking pressing triggers, structural shapes, and the absolute systemic inevitabilities of the modern game. But before we even touch the bracket itself, we got to establish our tactical baseline, Carlo Ancelotti's modernized Jogo Bonito. Now, from a scouting perspective, this isn't just about flashy stepovers. It's about fluid positional interchange. Ancelotti uses these asymmetric shapes to create really dense attacking overloads on one side of the pitch. He's intentionally drawing the opponent's block over just so he can isolate a superstar in a one-on-one on the far side. And that is exactly the blueprint we'll be tracking today. So here's our scouting roadmap for today. We're going to start with group stage evaluations, pinpoint those round of 32 mismatches, and analyze the last 16 tactical upsets. Then we'll break down the quarterfinal masterclasses, examine some massive semifinal system clashes, and wrap it all up with the ultimate tactical final. Let's get right to work. Section 1. Scouting the group stages and round of 32. With this expanded 48-team format, we're looking at a massive clash of footballing philosophies. Naturally, heavyweights like Germany, Spain, and Argentina are going to establish projected possession dominance right out of the gate. But my scouting notebook is heavily highlighting Colombia and Ivory Coast as definitive dark horses. Why? Well, Colombia uses vicious, pitch-specific pressing triggers to force high turnovers. Meanwhile, Ivory Coast sets up with this unbelievable vertical compactness in a low block that is quite frankly mathematically exhausting to penetrate. Now, as we advance to the round of 32, the systemic mismatches really start to emerge. The USA leverages rapid verticality on home soil to completely bypass Iran's midfield. Meanwhile, Argentina barely survives Uruguay, basically by dominating second ball recoveries in this grueling central pressing war. On the other side, France utilizes wide asymmetric overloads to completely dismantle Paraguay, and Brazil's positional fluidity, it effortlessly drags Japan's defensive shape totally out of alignment. Section 2. Last 16 Tactical Upsets. Okay, moving into the round of 16, the stakes skyrocket and those rigid systems begin to fracture under the pressure. On one side of the bracket, the tournament favorites execute clinically. France bypasses Germany's first line of pressure, Brazil plays straight through Ecuador's pressing traps, England maintains strict defensive solidity against Mexico, and Argentina's rest defense completely neutralizes the USA's transition game. But the other side of the bracket, that brings pure systemic chaos. Just consider this huge systemic mismatch between Spain and Portugal. Spain's possession-heavy, slow, transitional buildup leaves massive gaps in their rest defense. And that gets completely exposed by Portugal's disciplined mid-block and lethal vertical counterattacks. You pair that structural vulnerability with Cristiano Ronaldo's finishing on the break, and the magic of the World Cup yields our first massive upset. And this chaos paves the exact way for Ivory Coast's historic run. After showing elite compactness in the groups, they deploy an absolute masterclass mid-block in the round of 16. By explicitly refusing to press high, they intentionally draw Belgium out, which completely exposes Belgium's notoriously high defensive line to devastating counterattacks. It really proves that elite structural organization can absolutely negate sheer individual talent. Section 3. Quarterfinal Masterclasses. We're down to the final 8 now, where margins are razor thin, and elite managerial chess matches completely dictate survival. France systematically isolates the Netherlands' fullbacks to secure a third consecutive semifinal. Portugal's dynamic wing play finally stretches Ivory Coast's incredibly resilient defensive block to its breaking point. And Argentina? They rely on elite, dark arts game management to basically outgrind a highly physical Colombian squad. But the ultimate quarterfinal duel pits Carlo Ancelotti's fluid overloads against Thomas Tuchel's rigid positional play with England. Tuchel demands total control, structured rest defense, and intense zonal counterpressing. Ancelotti, on the other hand, thrives on positional freedom. In this massive clash of ideologies, the modernized Jogo Bonito prevails. Brazil's fluid movement simply drags England's rigid markers out of their zones, slicing right through to the Final Four. Section 4. Semifinal System Clashes. The semifinals present a massive collision of footballing ideologies, kicking off with a tactical rematch of 2006 between France and Portugal. And, reversing their historic fortunes, Portugal expertly bypasses the French midfield pivot by using really quick vertical transitions to exploit the half spaces behind the advancing French fullbacks. Portugal extracts highly calculated revenge and marches straight into the final. Now, as Brazil lines up against Argentina, the entire globe is holding its breath for the ultimate Messi versus Ronaldo dream final. But from a purely analytical, scouting perspective, it all boils down to one question. Can Lionel Messi's transitional playmaking gravity actually pull apart Carlo Ancelotti's surprisingly robust defensive structure? Well, as an analyst, I kind of have to break your hearts here. The answer is no. Brazil maintains a flawless, horizontally compact defensive shape. By keeping incredibly tight distances between their defensive and midfield lines, they completely deny Messi the space to operate centrally. Tactical discipline absolutely chokes out individual brilliance, and Argentina is knocked out. The dream final is dead. Section 5, the ultimate tactical final. So it all comes down to a Lusophone tactical derby, Portugal versus Brazil, with Cristiano Ronaldo playing his absolute final World Cup match. But Brazil secures the victory through a ruthless 3-step scouting masterclass. Step 1. Isolate Ronaldo by aggressively pressing Portugal's wingbacks to cut those supply lines. Step 2. Establish a numerical superiority of 4v3 in the central midfield to totally starve Portugal of possession. And Step 3. Execute those relentless Jogo Bonito overloads on the flanks to shatter an exhausted Portuguese defense. Ultimately, when the confetti falls, Ancelotti's mastermind tactics yield the only metric that truly matters: Brazil lifting their 6th World Cup trophy. It is the absolute triumph of modernized, fluid tactical freedom over rigid tournament structures. As we close this scouting explainer, you really have to ask yourself a critical question. Did we accurately map the tactical inevitabilities of these squads? Or is your gut feeling telling you that the beautiful, unpredictable chaos of the World Cup is going to completely rewrite this script? Take these scouting principles, analyze the brackets yourself, and see what you come up with. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep analyzing the game, and I'll catch you next time.